My name is Teresa Bell. I'm 28. And I manage safety and routes for my father's school bus company. At Shop des Équipes. M. On the night I saved transportation for 3,800 students. My father raised his glass and said, Chase has the executive presence this company needs. My half-brother smiled and added, You're better behind the scenes anyway. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just went to my car and took out the yellow Route 17 card. 7 months later, in front of 23 school board members and district officials, every promise they made about Bell Student Transit would be tested against records they couldn't talk over. This is that story. If you have ever been trusted with all the responsibility and denied the respect, I understand why that hurt. Please like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from and your local time. I rate every comment. Now let me take you back to the morning this all started. At 6:12 that morning, I was standing beside Bus 42 with a route map pressed against the hood. Marjorie Hale held a paper cup of coffee in one hand and the new student list in the other. You moved the Westbrook stop 3 blocks east, I said. It cuts 9 minutes and keeps the backup bus inside the district window. By 8:30, I had rebuilt 12 routes, reassigned 4 drivers, and found enough spare capacity to keep all 3,800 students covered. The district's cancellation notice was due at noon. At 11:46, the transportation director called and said Bell Student Transit would keep the contract. My father did not say thank you. He said, Good. Be at dinner by 7. The invitation called it a celebration of the company's future. That wording stayed with me. At the restaurant, 12 employees sat beneath framed photographs of old school buses. Chase was already in the chair beside my father. A folded place card with his name rested against Leonard's water glass. He had a speech printed on cream paper. He did not ask why everyone was there. He already knew. When Leonard made the announcement, a few people looked at me. Then they looked down. Silverware touched plates. Someone asked Chase what his first priority would be. And the room moved on before I did. In the parking lot, the Route 17 card lay across my palm. Its yellow surface had faded near the edges. One corner was soft from years inside my wallet. My father had taught me to drive that route. But that night, I had a different question. How long had he been teaching Chase to take my place? The question followed me into the yard the next morning. At 6:25, Marjorie Hale stood beside Bus 29, with the hood raised. She had been driving for Bell Student Transit longer than Chase had been out of college. And she could hear a loose belt before most mechanics found it. Who's signing this one, she asked. I looked at the inspection sheet, clipped to the windshield. The brake repair had been completed. But the test mileage was missing. No one yet. Marjorie glanced toward the office, where Chase's new nameplate had appeared overnight. That what I thought. I had spent 8 years learning that a bus route was never just a line on a map. Move one stop, and a driver might cross the county line before her certification allowed. Add 4 students, and the loading time could push the next school past its contract window. Keep one bus in service too long, and the spare ratio could fall below the number our insurer required. That was how I had saved the district contract. I moved 12 routes without increasing total mileage, shifted 4 drivers whose endorsements matched the new assignments, and placed 2 reserve buses where either could cover 3 schools within 18 minutes. Then I matched maintenance records to GPS mileage, built a driver coverage chart, and sent the district proof that all 3,800 students could still be transported if 2 buses failed on the same morning. Leonard had called that handling the details. By 8:10, I was in the dispatch office reviewing the previous month's insurance correspondence. Chase walked in carrying coffee and stopped behind my chair. Dad wants the bank packet updated before lunch. What packet? The leadership packet. He said it as if I should already know. Then he reached past me and opened the shared calendar on the wall monitor. A meeting from 3 weeks earlier sat between a fuel contract review and a payroll call. First County Bank succession planning. Leonard Bell and Chase Bell. Incoming executive leadership. IRSA. Chase took a drink. Dad likes to prepare. 3 weeks earlier, I had been sleeping 4 hours a night on the office couch. I had canceled a dentist appointment, missed Marjorie's retirement dinner for her husband, and spent one Sunday calling substitute drivers because Leonard said the company could not survive losing the district. While I was rebuilding the routes, he had been introducing Chase to the bank. The dinner had not changed my father's mind. It had announced it. Leonard came in at 9, carrying a folder of insurance forms. Teresa, I need your signature on the renewal pages before noon. I turned one page. The responsible safety officer line still had my name printed beneath it. Is Chase signing the executive certification? Of course. And I'm signing the safety certification. You've always handled that. Across the room, Chase was telling someone on the phone that he planned to bring vision and stronger relationships to the company. Leonard waited beside my desk with the folder open. When he spoke about Chase, he used words that belonged on a stage. When he spoke about me, he used words that belonged on a claim form. Signature, safety, insurance. You always handle it, he said again. I capped my pen without using it. Bus 29 still needs test mileage. Leonard looked toward the yard as if the bus had interrupted him. Marjorie was standing beside it with her arms folded, waiting for an answer no one else seemed eager to give. That was when I understood the position had never been offered to me, but the liability still was. By 6:40 the next morning, my office no longer belonged to me. Chase was sitting behind my desk with both feet planted where my filing cabinet used to be. My root board had been wiped clean. The framed district safety award was gone, and my brass nameplate lay face up in the trash beside a paper cup. He was wearing a navy jacket and talking into Leonard's phone. Tell them operations are under new leadership now, he said. Then he looked at me and covered the receiver. Dad wants you on standby driving until we finish the transition. I set my bag on the chair across from him. Who is supervising fleet safety? You are. He said it without looking up. Chase slid a stack of inspection forms across the desk. My name was already printed beneath the line marked Responsible Safety Officer. The executive approval line was blank. You'll keep signing these, he said. Nothing changes on that side. Except who makes the decisions. He smiled as if I had finally understood something simple. Exactly. At 7:15, Leonard called me into the conference room. Chase followed with the inspection forms tucked under one arm. Leonard closed the door, but not before Marjorie saw us go in. You haven't lost an important role, my father said. You don't need a title to do what you do best. I looked at the forms in Chase's hand. And what does he do best? Presence, vision, relationships. What happens when his decisions affect safety? Leonard leaned back. That is why you're still here. There it was. No confusion. No missing plan. Chase would make the calls. I would make them insurable. Leonard pushed a pen toward me. Sign today's release sheets. We can discuss reporting lines later. I did not touch it. Send every instruction involving vehicle safety, driver certification, maintenance clearance, or route compliance to me in writing. Chase laughed once. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I'm making it clear. I left the conference room and walked straight to the dispatch counter. Marjorie was waiting with 2 other drivers, Luis Ortega and Denise Cole. All 3 had morning routes. Finish your runs. I told them, do every inspection. If a bus does not pass, it does not leave the yard. Marjorie watched my face. And after today, I don't know yet. She pulled a receipt from her coat pocket and wrote her personal number on the back. Luis did the same. Denise asked quietly, do you have an email that isn't Bell? I gave them one. I did not ask them to leave. I did not ask them to choose. At 8:53, I sent 2 notices from my personal account. One went to Bell's insurance carrier. The other went to the district transportation office. Both stated that effective at 9 o'clock that morning, I no longer supervised Bell Student Transit's fleet, no longer authorized vehicle releases, and would not sign any safety document issued after that time. I requested written confirmation of receipt. At 9:12, the insurer replied. At 9:19, the district did too. Only then did I return the unsigned forms to Chase. He looked at the empty signature lines, then at me. Dad said you were staying? I'm not signing decisions I'm not allowed to make. His jaw tightened. You walk out now. You walk away from everything. He was almost right. By 10:30, my company health coverage was ending. By noon, payroll had removed my direct deposit. At 1:15, the electronic gate code to the yard stopped working. I sat in my car outside Bell Student Transit with $8,460 in savings. No salary, and no legal right to step back onto the property where I had spent half my life. Then I opened the state business registration site. At 2:07, I paid the filing fee with my personal card and entered the name, Northline Student Transit. The insurance deposit estimate on the second tab was larger than 3 months of my old pay. The contractor qualification packet required vehicle leases, driver records, financial guarantees, and proof that I could cover routes before I had a single route to cover. I clicked submit anyway. Behind the chain link fence, Bus 29 rolled toward the exit. Marjorie slowed beside my car and tapped 2 fingers against the glass before turning onto the road. I had removed my name from Bell. Now I had to find out what it could build on its own. Northline existed on paper at 2:07 on a Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, I had learned how little paper could do by itself. The state approval gave me a registration number, not a bus. The district contractor packet wanted proof of commercial insurance, vehicle leases, driver files, drug testing enrollment, maintenance agreements, a performance bond, and enough working capital to cover payroll before the first district check arrived. The application was 46 pages long. Page 38 asked whether Northline could absorb additional routes during an emergency. I almost laughed. At 9:15, I spread public school maps across my kitchen table and began building sample routes from information anyone could request. I used posted bell times, public stop zones, road restrictions, and state mileage limits. I did not open an old Bell file. I did not call anyone inside the company. Every line I drew had to survive without a single thing my father could claim I had taken. By Friday, my dining room looked like a dispatch office. Colored tabs covered the wall. Lease quotes sat beside insurance estimates. A yellow legal pad held one number at the bottom, $8,460. By the end of that week, the number had dropped to $6,912. The insurance broker called at 11:32. Your deposit is $4,800. I was quoted $3,600. That was before they reviewed the student transportation exposure. I looked at the state packet. Can they split it? No. I paid it before noon. 2 days later, Marjorie knocked on my apartment door carrying a blue accordion folder. Behind her stood Luis Ortega and Denise Cole. None of them wore Bell uniforms. I resigned Friday, Marjorie said. 2 weeks' notice. Finished every route. She opened the folder on my table. Her commercial license, school bus endorsement, medical certificate, annual training record, and background clearance were arranged in plastic sleeves. They were her copies. No Bell forms. No route sheets. No student names. Louise set down a thinner folder. Mine too. Denise held out hers last. You said not to take anything that wasn't ours. I meant it. We know. Marjorie looked around at the maps taped to my wall. You hiring. I did not answer right away. 3 licensed drivers would solve one problem and create 5 more. Payroll. Workers' compensation. Training records. Substitute coverage. I opened the contractor packet to the staffing section. I can't promise full-time work. Marjorie pulled out a chair. You never promised what you couldn't deliver before. Luis nodded toward the maps. You drove my afternoon route when my son had surgery. 3 days. Never put it on my attendance record. Denise gave a small shrug. You remembered my daughter's college interview. Chase still calls me Diane. No one mentioned loyalty. No one mentioned my father. They simply placed their own records on the table and waited. That was the first time Northline felt real. Over the next 5 weeks, I leased 4 buses from a regional fleet company at $1,600 per vehicle each month, plus a security deposit. I negotiated a maintenance agreement with a shop 15 miles east because they logged every repair by vehicle number, odometer reading, labor time, and part used. I enrolled all 3 drivers in a new drug testing consortium and paid for fresh background checks even though their old ones were still current. The district wanted independent verification. So did I. At the contractor interview, 3 transportation officers sat across from me in a room with no windows. The lead officer, Mrs. Calder, tapped page 38 of my application. You marked yes for emergency expansion. With conditions, I said. What conditions? Available insured vehicles, qualified drivers, and written route data delivered early enough to conduct a safety review. She studied me for a moment. Most new contractors just check yes. Most emergencies get worse when people promise buses they do not have. Her pen stopped. At 38% of the story, they did not know they were inside. Northline Student Transit was added to the district's approved contractor list. The email arrived at 4:17 on a Monday. I read it twice, then printed it because I wanted something my hands could hold. Approval did not mean work. It meant I was allowed to compete for it. 3 days later, a neighboring district posted an urgent bid for 8 specialized routes serving students with mobility equipment, medical plans, and fixed aid assignments. Bell did not operate in that district. Chase had no reason to notice the posting. And Leonard had always said small, special needs contracts were too complicated for the margin. I knew better. Complicated routes were where careful operators mattered most. For 4 nights, Marjorie, Luis, Denise, and I measured every stop against lift times, securement requirements, school arrival windows, and reserve coverage. I built 1 spare vehicle into the proposal and listed the maintenance shop as an independent reporting partner. Our price was not the lowest. It was complete. The award email came at 6:03 on a Thursday morning. 8 routes. 1 school year. Start date in 21 days. Marjorie read it over my shoulder and gripped the back of the chair. Denise covered her mouth. Luis said, You did it. We did enough to begin, I said. Then I opened the bank account. The lease deposits, insurance, bond premium, radios, safety equipment, payroll reserve, and fuel cards left $1,186 available. The first district payment would not arrive for 45 days. 1 missed form, 1 delayed reimbursement, 1 damaged lift, and Northline could be finished before the 2nd month. I signed the performance bond at 9:40 that morning. Across town, Bell Student Transit still had the large contract, the yard, the buses, and my father's name on the gate. Northline had 8 routes, 4 leased vehicles, 3 drivers, and less cash than Bell spent on fuel in a week. But the people Leonard had treated as replaceable had chosen where they wanted to stand. The only question left was how long he would ignore us. For the first 6 weeks, Northline did exactly what I had promised it would do. Every bus left after a completed inspection. Every wheelchair securement was checked twice. Every driver knew which student carried an emergency medication plan and which school required the lift to face away from traffic. We did not miss a route. We did not send a substitute without the right endorsement. When Bus 4 developed a warning light at 5:48 one morning, I canceled its release, moved Denise to the spare, and drove the remaining route myself. The repair cost $940. The district never knew how close that morning came to failure. They only saw all 8 routes arrive on time. At the end of the first month, Mrs. Calder invited me to a contractor review. She sat with 2 transportation officers and read from a printed score sheet. No missed service. No preventable safety findings. Documentation complete. Marjorie squeezed my wrist beneath the table. Mrs. Calder looked up. Northline will remain eligible for expansion opportunities. I thanked her, closed the folder, and waited until we were in the parking lot before smiling. Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed Leonard Bell. I let it go to voicemail. By then, the district had posted a preliminary request for proposals covering 24 additional routes the following semester. Bell was eligible. Northline was eligible. The contract was large enough to move us out of my apartment and into a real yard. It was also large enough to kill us if we bid wrong. At the pre-bid meeting, Chase stood near the front, wearing the same navy jacket he had worn when he took my office. Leonard stayed beside him, greeting board staff by first name. I sat 3 rows back with a binder on my lap, and Marjorie beside me. The procurement officer projected the cost summaries from the previous quarter. Bell's maintenance expense per mile had dropped by 28% since Chase became CEO. A few people murmured. Chase stood before anyone asked him to. We've modernized scheduling, reduced unnecessary downtime, and improved fleet efficiency. Mrs. Calder turned a page. What is your average vehicle downtime now? Chase smiled. The real story is utilization. We're keeping more buses available to serve students. That was not my question. Leonard leaned toward the microphone. Our safety record speaks for itself. I looked at Bell's figures again. Lower maintenance cost. More vehicles listed as available. Almost no increase in outside repair invoices. Those 3 numbers could coexist. But not for long. Northline's bid came in $14.60 higher per route hour than Bell's. Our maintenance agreement required immediate reporting, scheduled inspections, and documented labor. Bell's number assumed less downtime, fewer substitute vehicles, and lower repair spending. At the hallway coffee station, Chase stopped beside me. You can't scale at those rates. I can operate at them. He stirred sugar into his cup. That's what people say when they don't understand growth. Leonard joined us and looked at my binder. You always did overbuild everything. Buses do not become cheaper because the spreadsheet needs them to. Chase laughed softly, still emotional about the details. I closed the binder. Details carry children. 2 days later, a former Bell driver named Owen Price sent me a photograph from his personal phone. It showed a vehicle release form for Bus 36. My name appeared beneath Responsible Safety Officer. The date was 5 weeks after I had left. I saved the image in a folder marked Received, wrote down the time, and called Owen. Do not send me anything else from inside the company. I said, they're using your name. I see that. What should I do? Use the district safety reporting line. Tell them only what you personally saw. Keep your original photo. Do not take files. He went quiet. You're not going to use this. Not like that. That evening, another message arrived from a different driver. No attachment this time. Just a vehicle number and a concern. Bus 41 had been listed as returning from break service between 10:20 and 11:05 that morning. 45 minutes. I knew the repair shop Bell used. The drive from the yard took 18 minutes each way without traffic. The form claimed the rear brake assemblies had been inspected, adjusted, road tested, and cleared. The time did not fit the work. I opened a public GPS vendor portal that listed service contact information but no private vehicle data. Then I pulled the state inspection guidelines and calculated the minimum labor sequence. I did not need Bell's files to know something was wrong. I only needed the records to meet each other. They had not met yet. At Northline, the first district payment arrived 3 days late. Payroll cleared with $412 left in the operating account. That same afternoon, Mrs. Calder called to say our service review qualified us for consideration on the 24 route expansion. Then she lowered her voice. Bell's price is substantially below yours. How far below? Enough that the board will ask whether Northline can become more efficient. I looked through the office window at Marjorie, checking a wheelchair lift with both hands on the rail. Luis was underneath another bus with a flashlight. Denise was logging a tire measurement no passenger would ever see. That was what our price paid for. The next morning, Chase posted an interview online. He stood in front of the Bell Yard and talked about disciplined spending, modern leadership, and a fleet that spent less time in repair bays. Behind him, Bus 41 crossed the frame. Its left rear wheel shook once as it turned. I replayed the clip. Then I wrote down the time. The time I wrote down from Chase's interview turned out to matter. Bus 41 crossed the camera frame at 10:14 on a Wednesday morning. Bell's maintenance form said the same bus had entered the repair shop at 10:20, received a rear brake inspection and adjustment, completed a road test, and returned to service at 11:05. The shop was 18 minutes from the yard on a clear road. I did not need access to Bell's system to see the problem. The interview was public. The state repair sequence was public. The distance between the yard and the shop was public. What I did not have was authority to decide what those facts meant. At 8:40 the next morning, Mrs. Calder called. We received a safety report involving Bell vehicles. I kept my voice level. All right. Did you submit it? No. Have you received any internal Bell documents since leaving? One driver sent me a photograph without being asked. I told him to use the district reporting line and not send me anything else. There was a pause. I could hear pages turning. Did you sign any Bell vehicle release after 9 o'clock on March 14th? No. Any safety certification? No. Any authorization under your old title? No. She asked each question twice, using different words. I answered the same way each time. Then she requested copies of my resignation notice and the delivery confirmations from Bell's insurer and the district. I sent only those 3 documents. At 10:12, a courier delivered a letter from Leonard's attorney to Northline's rented office. Marjorie watched me sign for it while Luis checked tire pressure outside. The letter warned me not to retain, disclose, or use Bell Student Transit's proprietary records, route information, maintenance files, or employee data. It also reserved the company's right to seek damages if Northline interfered with Bell's contracts. Marjorie read the first page over my shoulder. They think you reported them. They want me afraid of proving I didn't. What are you going to do? I folded the letter along its original crease. Nothing with their records. That afternoon, Chase gave another interview. He called the district inquiry routine and said Bell welcomed any review of its improved efficiency. He stood in front of 3 buses with fresh wash marks on the windows. Leonard stood beside him, nodding when Chase said the company's documentation remained under experienced safety oversight. My old title appeared beneath my name on the graphic. I took a screenshot of the broadcast time. Nothing else. 2 days later, the district issued a preliminary score for the 24 route expansion. Bell ranked first on price. Northline ranked first on safety documentation and contingency capacity. But the cost difference was large enough that staff recommended negotiations before any award. Chase sent me a message at 7:11 that evening. You can still withdraw before this gets embarrassing. I read it once and set the phone face down. Across the office, Denise was assembling emergency binders for the 8 routes we already had. Marjorie was reviewing substitute driver availability. Northline could cover 4 additional routes with its current fleet and more if the regional leasing company released 2 vehicles held in reserve. The same forms that made us look expensive also proved we could expand without pretending. On Monday morning, an independent vehicle inspector arrived at Bell's yard before the first student pickup. I knew because the district called Northline at 6:36 and asked me to confirm our emergency capacity if another contractor experienced temporary service disruption. How many routes? I asked. No number yet. How much notice? Possibly less than 24 hours. I opened our contingency file. 4 immediately. Up to 12 with leased vehicles and approved drivers. Provided route data arrives before 3 p.m. Mrs. Calder did not react. Send that in writing. By 7:10, Northline's insurance broker had confirmed the additional vehicle process. By 8:20, the leasing company had 2 buses available for inspection. By 9, 3 substitute drivers had agreed to remain on call. Bell still had the contract. But for the first time, the district was asking what happened if it did not. At 11:48, the independent inspector contacted Northline's maintenance shop. He did not ask about Bell. He asked how long a rear brake inspection, adjustment, and road test normally required on a vehicle of that size. The shop manager answered from his own records and sent a standard labor estimate. At 1:16, the GPS vendor received a preservation request for location data on 5 Bell buses. At 2:04, Bell's insurer requested maintenance invoices for the same vehicles. At 3:30, the district asked the state inspection unit whether the listed repair sequence matched required procedure. No one asked Chase for permission. That was the part he had missed. He thought control meant possessing the forms. He thought the person holding the microphone decided which numbers mattered. But the mileage belonged to the GPS provider. The invoices belonged to the repair shop. The inspection authority belonged to the state. The policy conditions belonged to the insurer. The contract belonged to the district. His signature could not command any of them. At 4:23, Mrs. Calder called again. The inspector has expanded the review. What does that mean? I cannot discuss findings before they are complete. Understood. If you are asked at a public meeting whether you signed documents after March 14th, will your answer remain no? Yes. And you have confirmation that Bell's insurer received your notice at 9:12 that morning? Yes. The district received it at 9:19? Yes. She thanked me and ended the call. I sat at my desk with the 2 confirmation emails open on the screen. The dates had looked small when I sent them. A line of text. A timestamp. Proof that I had stopped carrying responsibility for decisions I could no longer make. Outside, rain struck the metal roof of the rented garage. Marjorie stepped in holding a clipboard. All 8 buses cleared for tomorrow. Thank you. She looked at the emails on my screen but did not ask. You staying late? For a while. She placed a cup of coffee beside me and went back to the yard. At 6:17, the district postponed the 24 route award pending completion of the Bell review. Northline did not win anything. Bell did not lose anything. Chase still had the yard, the large contract, and his name on the office door. Then his attorney sent a second letter accusing Northline of exploiting a confidential investigation for competitive advantage. The accusation went to the district too. If the review cleared Bell, Chase could point to my bid, my former job, and the timing of the inquiry. He could make every correct thing I had done look like revenge. The 8 routes we had earned could be reviewed. The 24 route opportunity could disappear. Northline's clean record would not protect us from suspicion if I stepped outside the process now. So I did not call a reporter. I did not confront Leonard. I did not send the photograph from Owen's phone to anyone who had not lawfully requested it. I waited for records I did not own to answer questions I was not allowed to answer for them. Before the meeting notice arrived. Let me ask you something. If your name stayed on the paperwork after the day you officially withdrew your authority, would that paper protect the people using it? Or would it prove exactly what they had done? The meeting notice arrived at 7:08 the next morning. Emergency session, student transportation, continuity, and contractor compliance. The district scheduled it for 4:30 that afternoon and listed 23 attending officials, 7 school board members, the superintendent, the district attorney, 4 transportation administrators, 3 insurance representatives, 2 independent inspectors, 2 procurement officers, and 3 finance staff responsible for the performance bond. The session would be televised. At 3:52, I entered through the side doors carrying one folder. It held my March 14th notice, the insurer's confirmation from 9/12, and the district's confirmation from 9/19. Nothing from Belle. Nothing Owen had sent. Nothing I was not entitled to possess. Leonard sat at the front table with Chase and their attorney. Chase had 2 binders open in front of him. My father had brought the brass nameplate from his office and placed it beside his microphone, as if the Belle name itself were evidence. Mrs. Calder asked me to sit behind the Northline placard. The meeting began at 4:31. An independent inspector described the unannounced review conducted before student pickup. 6 Belle buses had been held in the yard. No children had boarded them. 3 had brake defects requiring repair. 1 had a steering component outside tolerance. 2 had maintenance releases that could not be reconciled with the work claimed. Chase leaned toward his microphone. Those vehicles were available pending minor corrections. The inspector did not look at him. They were recorded as cleared for student service. A GPS representative displayed the first timeline. Bus 41 had remained at Belle's yard during most of the period when its maintenance form said it was traveling to an outside shop. Bus 36 had accumulated route mileage on a day its paperwork listed it out of service for repairs. 2 invoices carried labor times that overlapped with GPS movement. The records did not disagree by minutes. They described different realities. The insurance representative opened a document on the screen. My name appeared beneath Responsible Safety Officer on 17 vehicle releases issued after I left Belle. Chase stood. Teresa handled those forms. Her name remained on the account. The representative changed the slide. March 14th, 9:12 a.m. My withdrawal notice filled the screen beside the insurer's delivery confirmation. No, she said. Ms. Belle informed us in writing that she no longer held safety authority. We acknowledged that notice before these releases were issued. Chase reached for his first binder. He flipped several pages, then moved to the second. There is an updated designation. It should be. A stack of forms slid from his hand and struck the floor. Papers spread beneath the table. He bent to gather them. But the attorney beside him pulled his chair several inches away and closed his own folder. Chase stayed crouched for a moment. No one helped him. The insurance representative continued. Belle had certified that its responsible safety oversight remained unchanged. The forms bearing my name did not prove that I had approved the buses. They proved Belle had submitted releases under the name of someone who had already withdrawn authority. The shield became the record. Leonard pressed his microphone button. My daughter has always handled. His voice stopped. The chairwoman looked directly at him. Your daughter notified the insurer and this district 7 months ago that she handled nothing for Belle Student Transit after 9 o'clock on March 14th. Leonard gripped the edge of the table and pushed himself up. His knee struck the chair. The microphone squealed. He lowered himself back into the seat without finishing the sentence. For years, people had turned toward him before making decisions. This time, they turned toward the district attorney. The insurer announced immediate cancellation of Belle's fleet coverage for material misrepresentation and failure to maintain required safety controls. Without active coverage, Belle could not legally operate the district routes the next morning. The procurement officer read Northline's qualification status aloud. Approved contractor. Verified maintenance partner. Insured reserve capacity. 12 routes available within 24 hours. With additional coverage pending vehicle inspection. Everything Chase had called too expensive was already in the file. At 5:46, the board voted to terminate Belle Student Transit's contract for cause. 7 hands rose. None remained down. The finance office invoked the performance bond to cover emergency transition costs. And the district assigned the routes to Northline until a new competitive award could be completed. Chase stood too quickly. His chair tipped backward and hit the floor. He opened his mouth toward Leonard, then toward the attorney. Neither man looked at him. He stepped around the scattered forms and walked toward the exit while the televised session continued. No one followed. Mrs. Calder placed a route packet in front of me. Can Northline begin transition tonight? I looked at the first page. 3,800 students. 42 routes. First pickup at 6:05 the next morning. Yes, I said. Send the driver assignments and medical accommodation files through the secure portal by 7. There was no applause. There should not have been. Children still needed rides. By 6:15, Marjorie had opened the emergency call list. Luis was driving to the leasing company. Denise was setting up driver packets. I left the boardroom with the route files under one arm and called our insurer from the hallway. Behind me, Leonard remained seated at the table beneath the Bell Student Transit placard. For the first time, the name was all he had left. We moved 42 routes in 11 hours. By 5:20 the next morning, every driver had a packet. Every medical accommodation had been matched to a vehicle. And every backup number had been written twice. Marjorie took the north side. Luis covered the middle schools. Denise trained 6 Bell drivers who had been cleared to work under Northline's insurance. At 6:05, the first bus left the temporary yard. No child missed school. Leonard called at 9:43. I was standing beside a folding table, checking fuel receipts. When his name appeared on my phone, I answered because there were still employees whose final pay depended on paperwork he controlled. We can fix this, he said. What needs fixing? Come back as Chief Operating Officer. You run operations. Chase remains Chief Executive. I looked across the yard. Chase's decisions had cost Bell its insurance, its contract, and the trust of the district. Leonard was still offering me the work beneath him. Who would I report to? A pause. Chase. No. He began to say my name. I ended the call. 3 weeks later, First County Bank repossessed Bell's buses and locked the yard. Without the district contract or fleet coverage, Leonard could not meet the loan terms. The bank listed the vehicles, tools, office equipment, and property in a public asset sale. I received the same notice as every approved bidder. Northline did not have enough cash to buy the yard outright. We had clean performance reports, active contracts, and revenue the bank could verify. So I brought our records to a commercial lender. I signed a loan with my own guarantee, paid the deposit from Northline's account, and bid against 2 regional operators. The auction lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, Northline owned the garage, the dispatch office, and the fenced lot where I had learned to wash buses before I was old enough to drive one. The buses were sold separately. We bought 9 that passed independent inspection and walked away from the rest. Leonard was not present when the keys changed hands. On the first Monday after closing, Marjorie stood beside me at the front gate with a cordless drill. The old metal sign stretched across 2 posts. Bell Student Transit. Luis steadied the ladder while I removed the final bolt. The sign shifted, scraped against the post, and came down into Marjorie's hands. No one cheered. Denise carried out the new sign, and we raised it in the same place. Northline Student Transit. Inside the garage, the maintenance board listed every vehicle by number, inspection date, mileage, open repair, and person authorized to release it. No blank signatures. No names left in place after authority ended. If a bus waited for a part, the board said so. If it could not run, it stayed parked. Some of the former Bell drivers applied to Northline. We hired the ones who met the standards and completed the new training. No one was required to prove loyalty. They only had to tell the truth about a vehicle before putting a child inside it. By spring, Northline held the district contract through a full competitive award. The 24-route expansion came later. We added vehicles only after insurance, staffing, and maintenance capacity were in place. Slowly, on purpose. The following August, the district assigned Route 17 to Northline. I drove it myself on the first morning. At 5:51, I climbed into Bus 9 and placed the old yellow Route 17 card on the passenger seat. The paper had faded almost white along one edge. The lower corner still bent where my father's thumb used to hold it against the dashboard while he showed me the turns. Marjorie checked the lift behind me. You know the route. Yes. She smiled. Thought you might. At 6:16, the first student climbed aboard. A mother in a blue robe stood at the curb and held up one hand until her son was seated. At the next stop, a little girl counted the steps aloud. By the time the sun cleared the houses, every seat assigned to me was filled. Route 17 passed Leonard's house at 6:42. His truck was in the driveway. The porch light was on. I kept both hands on the wheel. I did not slow down. I did not look toward the windows. At the next stop, while a father fastened his daughter's coat beneath her chin, I picked up the yellow card. I ran my thumb once over the softened corner, opened the glove compartment, and placed it inside. Then I closed the door and pulled back onto the road. The girl who brought everyone else's children home should never have to wait for her father to choose her.